Welcome to Lord of Limbo, where the unknown finds its voice. Today, we bring you real stories that defy logic and test the limits of fear. Tales of ordinary people who have lived through terrifying and inexplicable experiences. Whether at work, at home, on the road, or on a simple walk, the unexpected can strike when least expected. Get ready to dive into another chilling episode. And remember, not everything can be explained. My name is Trent. I've been a night porter at a small, almost forgotten building in a quiet part of the city for the past 5 years. The area itself is nothing special: old, crumbling apartment complexes mixed with small shops that mostly remain closed after sunset. The building I work in is a strange one. It's the kind of place people walk by without even glancing at, as if it's not even there. But the tenants who live there, well, I can't quite explain it. It's as if the whole place has an energy, a presence that's more than just bricks and mortar. I've always worked the night shifts. The long hours alone in that lobby can get a little eerie, but I've grown used to it. Or so I thought. It was late in the evening when the strange events started. I had just finished my usual rounds, checking the locks, making sure everything was in order, when I noticed something out of the corner of my eye. A figure stood at the entrance, right where the streetlights met the building's shadow. It wasn't uncommon for people to wander around the neighborhood at night, but this person, they didn't move. They just stood there, motionless, as if waiting for something. Or someone. I watched for a moment, then went back to the security desk, brushing it off. Maybe it was just someone who was lost or waiting for a friend. But as I sat there, a strange unease began to creep over me. The air felt heavier. The lobby, usually quiet, seemed to hum with an unexplainable tension. Every few seconds, I would glance toward the entrance, but the figure was gone. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that maybe I had just imagined it. The next few hours were uneventful, the usual sounds of the building settling, the occasional creak of pipes, nothing out of the ordinary. But just as I was about to settle in for the night, I heard the distinct sound of footsteps. It wasn't coming from the hallway. It was coming from behind the front desk. I turned quickly, expecting to see one of the tenants walking toward me. But no one was there. The footsteps were soft, almost muffled, but clear enough to hear. They circled the desk, and then stopped. The silence that followed was overwhelming. I felt my heartbeat in my throat. I stood up, trying to push the growing dread from my chest. Maybe it was a rat, or something else that could have made those noises. But as I checked around the desk, I found nothing. No sign of anyone, no movement. Just the same cold, lifeless air. I told myself it was all in my head. Still, the rest of the night felt different. Each creak of the building, every shift in the air, made me feel like I wasn't alone anymore. The feeling grew worse as the hours wore on. I tried to distract myself with my phone, but the screens seemed to flicker strangely, as if they too were on the edge of something. My eyes kept darting back toward the entrance, but there was nothing there. Around 3:30 a.m., something odd happened. The door to the lobby, which is always locked after a certain hour, slowly creaked open. I knew for sure that I had locked it earlier. No one should have been able to get in without me noticing. My stomach churned, and I hesitated for a moment, but then, I stood up and walked toward the door. There was no one outside. The street was empty. I stepped out into the cool night air, my breath visible in the dim light from the street lamps. My shoes crunched on the pavement as I checked the area around the door. No one was there. No one in sight. I locked the door again, but as I did, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been watching me. It wasn't just the loneliness of the building. It was like there was an awareness, something lurking in the shadows, something that didn't belong. That's when I heard it. A soft whisper, barely audible, but distinct. The voice came from the dark corner of the building, just out of sight from where I stood. It wasn't a word, just a faint sound, like someone was breathing or mumbling to themselves. I froze. My body was stiff, my mind racing. The whisper grew louder, then suddenly stopped. I couldn't move. My feet felt as though they were glued to the floor. Then, just as quickly as it had started, it was over. I turned and quickly made my way back into the lobby, locking the door behind me once more. The feeling of being watched didn't leave. If anything, it only intensified. I tried to call my supervisor, but my phone wouldn't connect. It felt as if the building itself was pressing in on me, as if it was alive. It's hard to explain, but the place, it doesn't feel right. I can't put it into words. At that point, I decided to stay in the lobby until morning. I'd never felt so uneasy in my entire life. The sound of those footsteps, the whispers, the locked door, it didn't make sense. I've worked in the city for years, and I know that buildings settle, that old structures can creak and groan. But this was different. This felt personal. As if something knew I was there. By the time the morning shift arrived, I couldn't get out of that building fast enough. My hands were shaking as I handed over my keys and clocked out, but as I left, something strange happened. The building, which had felt so oppressive just a few hours ago, seemed calm again. Quiet, even. I couldn't help but glance back at the front doors as I stepped onto the sidewalk, half expecting to see something, or someone, standing in the shadows again. But there was nothing. I've been back to work since then, of course. But every night, when I walk through those front doors, the same feeling of unease comes rushing back. I don't know what it is, or who, or what, was there that night. But I can't shake the sense that the building isn't just old. It's waiting. Waiting for something. Or someone. And I don't plan on finding out what. Store 2. My name is Nikolai. I've been working as a night porter for a small, run-down building tucked away in a quiet corner of the city for nearly 2 years now. It's not a glamorous job, but it pays the bills. The building itself looks like it hasn't seen a lick of paint in decades. The bricks are crumbling in places, and the lobby smells faintly of mildew. But what stands out about it more than anything is how empty it always feels. It's like the building has never been alive, as though it's merely existing, passing time. The tenants who live there are strange, always keeping to themselves. They come and go at odd hours, and you never really see them interacting with anyone else. The building is quiet, almost too quiet, especially at night. The first incident that made me question things happened about a month ago. I had just started my shift around 10 p.m., and the lobby was as still as ever. It was an unusually cold night for the season, and the air had a sharp, biting quality to it. As I checked the security cameras, something on one of the screens caught my eye. There was movement near the elevator. The hallway lights flickered, and for a brief second, I saw a shadow shift just out of frame. I figured it was just a glitch in the camera or maybe some misalignment with the lights, but something about it made my skin crawl. I decided to investigate. The elevator was at the ground floor, but the doors were wide open. There was no one inside, and no one in the hallway either. I stood there for a few moments, trying to shake off the odd sensation creeping up my spine. But as I turned to leave, I felt a cold draft on the back of my neck, followed by a soft sound, a quiet shuffle, almost like footsteps. I froze. The only way into the building at that hour was through the front entrance. No one had entered or exited in the last hour, and the door had been locked. I slowly turned around, but the hallway was empty. The air felt thick, like something was pressing down on me. I went back to the desk, my heart racing. Maybe it was just my imagination. But then, just as I was about to sit back down, I heard it again, the soft shuffling sound, only this time it was closer. I turned to face the hallway, my breath held tight in my chest. Nothing. I stood up quickly, my legs feeling unsteady, and went to check the hallway again. The elevator was still at the bottom, its door wide open. No sign of anyone. But as I walked past the lobby mirror, I caught something in the reflection. A faint, dark shape that was moving in the corner of the hallway. I whipped around to face the corner, but it was empty. I told myself I was just overtired, that it was nothing, and returned to the desk. I tried to stay calm, but my nerves were on edge for the rest of the night. Over the next few weeks, things only got stranger. There were more instances of odd sounds, creaks from the floor above, whispers that seemed to come from nowhere, the feeling of being watched. I never saw anyone, but I could sense a presence, like something or someone was always just outside my line of sight. But it was the elevator that truly unsettled me. Every few nights, the elevator would suddenly stop on the ground floor, its doors opening as though someone had summoned it. But when I went to check, there was no one there. It didn't matter how many times I checked the building's security system. No one had used the elevator. Yet, the doors would open at the same time every night, sometimes accompanied by the sound of footsteps, always faint, always distant, as if someone was walking just out of reach. Then came the night that I can't forget. I had just finished my rounds and was sitting at the desk when I heard a knock at the front door. I glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight, and there shouldn't have been anyone coming through that late. I walked over and peered through the glass. There was no one there. I stood there for a long moment, staring out into the empty street. The streetlights cast long shadows, and the fog had begun to roll in, making everything feel more distant, more unreal. I turned to walk back inside, but then I heard it again. A single, unmistakable knock. It wasn't a loud sound, but it was sharp and clear, coming from the door itself. I hesitated, my hand on the door handle. Something inside me screamed to leave it locked. But I couldn't ignore it. I unlocked the door slowly, the metal scraping against the frame, and opened it just a crack. I couldn't see anyone, just the darkened street stretching out before me. But as I looked down, my heart stopped. There, just below the doorframe, was a trail of wet footprints leading into the lobby. The prints were small, like those of a child, but there was something off about them. They weren't made of water, they looked like something darker, almost slick, like oil or tar. I stepped back, a cold sweat forming on the back of my neck. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. I wanted to close the door, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from the footprints. They were so clear, as if someone, or something, had been standing there just moments before. I slammed the door shut and locked it again. But that night, I couldn't stay in the lobby anymore. I tried to leave, but every time I got close to the door, the sense of unease hit me like a wall. The air felt heavy, pressing in on me, suffocating. I finally managed to step out into the night, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone, that someone, or something, was still inside, watching from the shadows. I haven't been able to bring myself to stay the entire night since. I come in, do my job, and leave as quickly as possible. I'm not sure what's going on in that building, but I've learned not to question it. It's like there's something in the walls, something that's not meant to be seen, something that moves when you aren't looking. I don't know if the building is haunted or if it's just something about the place that makes everything feel off, but one thing is certain, whatever's there isn't willing to leave. And it's waiting. For what? I don't know. If you've made it this far, thank you for joining another episode of Lord of Limbo. What would you do if you experienced something like this? Have you ever had a terrifying encounter? Feel free to share in the comments, because the unknown might be closer than we think. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more dark stories. We'll see you in the next video, if you're still here.